Welcome back, everybody. It's the final episode of the season for the BettingPros College Football Preview Show. I'm your host, Scott Bogman. Follow me on the Twitter at Bogman Sports. I am with, as always, Thor Nystrom. Follow him on the Twitter at ThorKU, and Mike Farrell, M Farrell Sports, 2 R's, 2 L's on the Twitter. Obviously, I'm very disappointed in the outcome of the semifinal games, but we do have a great national championship matchup between Michigan and Washington. It's going to be an exciting, fun game. Before we dive into this game in depth and in detail, Thor, your thoughts on the semifinals?
They were incredible. By far the best semifinals that we've ever had in the college football playoff. And I think it was the final period on the sentence of the committee got the decision right. Instead of having the one traditional throwaway semifinal game where one team gets resoundingly dog walked, we had 2 instant classics where they each came down to the last play of the game and you were riveted throughout. So kudos to the committee for making the courageous call where they had to put up with a couple weeks of getting slammed and different stuff like that. They made the correct decision and we got 2 instant classics out of it. And maybe we'll get another one here on Monday night.
It looks like Mike is not agreeing with you there. What do you think, Mike?
They didn't put up with it. I mean, it's still going on. I mean, Florida State fans are never going to stop complaining about this, and rightfully so. I get it, but there's still lawsuits and all this other stuff out there in the state of Florida, and there's going to be hopefully we're going to get some records as to see what ESPN's relationship with the College Football Playoff Committee is, and the TV versus talking heads and all that stuff. It's never going to stop. Florida State fans will never, ever stop. And that bowl game that they played in was an atrocity, an embarrassment. And a lot of things need to be fixed. The thing that doesn't need to be fixed is, the playoff matchups we had. Tremendous games. Obviously, one goes to overtime. The other comes down to the last second. As Thor mentioned, instant classics for sure. They did get it. This is what we wanted. I mean, I said Florida State got screwed, but on the other hand, I didn't want to see them play Michigan. I would rather see Alabama play Michigan. I would rather see that matchup, and we got ourselves a very good game. Nick Saban, was on Pat McAfee today, which is Thursday. So that's going to be released, I believe, Friday. Very interesting stuff he had to say. I mean, everything praiseworthy, of course, of Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, but that last play, the timeout that Michigan took when they saw the formation, the timeout that Alabama took, that Saban admitted he didn't have a check with me play if he didn't have a good look for Milroe. Tommy Rees under fire for that quarterback draw call. Less controversy in the Texas-Washington game, and Washington's a feel-good story. I mean, I know you hate it, Bugman, but everybody counts them out, and they're counting them out in the championship game here, and they just keep playing. They keep winning. They're a very talented team. DeBoer is a superstar. Harbaugh has done a great job. Team-led, player-led team, Michigan. So I think we got everything we wanted to. But I will tell you this. Kirk Herbstreit will tweet or X, post, whatever. He will never post anything for the rest of his entire existence in life without some Florida State fan coming in there and blaming him for ruining their lives.
I'll never get the 3.5 hours back of the 63-3 at Georgia, Florida State. And
horrible. Embarrassing.
Yeah, and Alabama, Michigan was the most watched college football game, I believe, of the last 20, 25 years. The proof is in the pudding. So, Again, kudos to the committee.
Good luck arguing with those Florida State fans.
Yeah,
I'm done with it. Those people can shut up.
They can shut up. They quit.
Yeah.
They quit. The team quit. This kid, the best thing could have happened for them, honestly, would be either buck up and play and try to beat Georgia and claim that national championship, which would be much more claim-worthy than UCF. You beat the 2-time reigning champs and you're undefeated. Or just politely decline the Orange Bowl, bid. But don't do the middle. Don't have half your team opt out and put out this garbage team with a bunch of young kids who have never played and have them get slaughtered by UGA. Don't do the middle. And they did the middle, and they're paying for it. And 63-3 will be what they'll hear for the rest of their lives. So Kirk Herbstreit won't hear it either. But, Florida, Miami fans, people who don't like Clemson fans, don't like Florida State, 63-3 is going to be a response to a whole lot of posts on social media.
And by the way, Tate Rodemaker and the Wildcat offense would have gotten annihilated by that Michigan team. Annihilated.
Right.
Nobody wanted to watch it. No one wanted to watch that Florida State team with Tate Rodemaker get annihilated by Michigan. Again, congrats to the committee.
Yeah, and I can't believe you guys are breaking news that people on Twitter might be unreasonable. I can't believe it. So this is the first time hearing about it. I thought everyone was calm, cool, and collected over there. But look, before we get to the national championship breakdown, have you guys checked out the all-new BettingPros iOS app yet? We've given the app a fresh makeover to create a better overall experience. New features include a community section. You can connect with top-rated bettors, a following feed, view a feed of bets from everyone you follow, and get instant notifications when new bets are placed. We have bet tracking. We have improved live tracking of your bets across your sports books to help monitor your performance. You can sort our prop bet cheat sheet by over percentage and under percentage for the last 15 games to be on the right side of the recent trends. To take advantage of these features and more, download the BettingPros app by visiting bettingpros.com/app or BettingPros or search BettingPros in the App Store. So I kind of broke this down. The line is Michigan by 4.5, and the total is 55.5. It's going to move a little bit. The overs already come up to 56 on a lot of books, but 55.5 is still the best number you can get. But I'm going to separate it by this: when Washington has the ball and when Michigan has the ball. So let's start at the quarterback position. Penix versus the Michigan secondary. Penix was 23 of 38 for 430 yards and 2 touchdowns against Texas. And some of those footballs, like Mike, you were talking about, were just placed in an absolute bucket. There was good coverage downfield. He just put it exactly where it needed to be, and Odunze was there. So he was pretty unstoppable. Milroe was 16 of 23 for 116 yards. It took 6 sacks. He fumbled. Michigan has the number 1 coverage grade on PFF. And I just think this is a very interesting matchup. We do have some props on Penix, but let's talk about Penix versus the secondary first. Is this a good matchup for Penix, Thor? Or is this a good matchup for the Michigan secondary? Because this is really strength on strength here.
Yeah, it sure is. This is what, for Michigan, this is your pass defense. This is what you're hoping is the equalizer of this matchup. It's not going to be the trump card. Penix is too good for that. Odunze is too good for that. But you're just hoping to battle them to a draw. And Michigan's pass defense is elite enough to potentially have that happen. You're not going to, wipe them off the face of the earth. But if you can battle them to a draw here, that's where you take control of this game in conjunction with their rushing offense, Michigan's, which we'll talk about here in a second. The path to that is putting pressure on Penix and getting him off the spot in conjunction with your awesome secondary as well for Michigan. Getting Penix off his spot is how you take that passing game down. Ironically enough, the best example we saw of that this year was 3-9 Arizona State. You go back to that game, which Washington only won 15-7. So Arizona State in that game, they logged 14 pressures on 43 dropbacks of Penix. In that game, Michael Penix was held to a season low 2.4 seconds average time to throw on his dropbacks. Penix did manage to avoid being sacked. You guys know he's only been sacked, 10 times or 11 times
10,
this
11
year?
times,
Yeah, like on his ludicrous amount of drop. The guy doesn't get sacked. He can get the ball out from any arm angle in this, snap of a finger or whatever. He has the quickest release you'll ever see. And he has that mandate. Do not get sacked. Do not put the offense behind the sticks or whatever. But despite that, he had his lowest PFF game grade by far, 48 flat in that game, and by far his lowest NFL passer rating, 63.1. Michael Penix, the one thing that you can say to sort of nitpick his game, doesn't throw on the run, and under pressure, his game starts to go down a bit. PFF passing grade, 70.3 under pressure, only completes 45.1% of his passes. 5-3 TDI and T rate when under pressure. In clean pockets, 93.1 PFF grade, obviously elite. Completes 73.6% of his passes. 30-6 TDI and T rate. Michigan must get pressure on Michael Penix. Last game against Alabama, Michigan turned up the heat on Jalen Milroe. 5 sacks. He was under duress the entire game. And Michigan was able to do that without really sending extra guys. They sort of figured out Alabama's that sort of the way that they were configuring their pass protection. They were knifing through those gaps left and right and getting the free rushers on Milroe. We'll see if they're able to do that against Washington's front. If they are, Washington could be in trouble with regards to that. Washington, you can think of their offense similar-ish to the 2019 LSU Tigers in that you guys recall that team with, Joe Burrow and Chase and Jefferson, all those different guys. Remember how they love to send Elaire out and different stuff like that? They love to run the empty. That LSU team did that more than this Washington team, but Washington is extremely similar in that they will have 4 guys running routes and 5 guys running routes on an extremely high propensity of their passing concepts. So they leave Penix back there in islands to throw because Penix loves to have the wide open, panorama vision of the field and everything like that. But the one scary thing is then you leave him susceptible to the thing of when he's under duress, his game goes down. Can the offensive line hold up? Can he see the look he likes quick enough to get it out when he still has that sturdy platform under him? Right? Because if you can get him off the spot, that's where the accuracy goes down. That's when he doesn't make as good of decisions, et cetera, et cetera. That's where the rubber is going to meet the road as far as that goes. Michigan obviously has the good secondary. So if we can get him off the spot, that's where the advantage goes for Michigan. Washington, it goes without saying, does not the running game, when they put the ball on the ground, it's a huge advantage towards Michigan. Michigan has an elite run defense. I think they're number 3 in terms of success rate. Their defense on the ground, I think it's number 4 explosion. Washington's run offense, it was above average during the fall, especially towards the latter part of it when Dylan Johnson started to take off. But Dylan Johnson, the last 3 games, had the foot injury he was playing through. In the last game in the semifinals, he had the leg injury at the very end of the game. They had to take him off the field. Bogman, you'll recall that allowed Texas to, because of that weird rule where it stops the clock. Yeah, it gave them the possession there at the end.
Possession, yeah.
Yeah, to allow them to drive down, and Texas had a shot there at the end to potentially win. Now, Washington is saying, and they came out right after the game, the x-rays were taken on Dylan Johnson. They said that the x-rays were negative. Dylan Johnson is going to play, but 1,000,000%, Dylan Johnson is not even going to be close to 100% in this game. He has both the leg injury and the foot injury. Extremely tough kid, but not even going to be close to 100%. Washington does not have great running back depth. They have the young speedster, that Tebow Rogers kid. Behind him, it's not great. They have 2 running backs that were inactive in the last game because of injuries. And then outside of that, they have the Arizona State transfer Nada, who's been mostly a kick returner. It gets kind of hairy outside of that. It's just not a great matchup. Michigan's front is going to be pushing them around in terms of that. So they have to be able to pass. I don't know about that. I really respect Michigan's pass defense. I don't love the matchup. You love Penix, you love Odunze, but Michigan's pass defense is elite in the country, and it has been 3 years running now. Going to the prop market, Michael Penix, when the Prize Picks numbers came out, I immediately banged his under. I know it's scary, but it's scarier to doubt the Michigan pass defense. Historically here, going back the last couple of years, Penix's number came out at 300.5 on Prize Picks. It was way too high. So I went under on that. Michigan has allowed an average of 150 flat passing yards per game this season over 14 games. They've allowed a max in a game of 271. I believe it was the Ohio State game. So I went under on Penix. Then the one I like even more than that, I think this is a ludicrous line, and I'm surprised that it hasn't been taken off of Prize Picks. Prize Picks has a line of Michael Penix 2.5 touchdowns. This is why that line is crazy. So I'm under on that. Michigan this season has allowed 7 passing touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks this year in 14 games. So Michigan averages a half a touchdown allowed to opposing quarterbacks this year. They've only allowed, so there was one time this year where an opposing quarterback got to 2. That's the only time that an opposing team has even been close to that number. And if you look at total touchdowns, total touchdowns that Michigan has allowed to opposing offenses this year. All opposing teams in 14 games. Michigan has allowed 16 touchdowns this year to opposing offenses, and they're giving Michael Penix 2.5. What are we doing?
The DK line is 1.5, by the way, and that's minus 115. That's like normal juice.
Yeah,
so most other books are.
At most books, and you have to pay a bit of an accelerated, the juice, whatever. But at Prize Picks, we have the 2.5, so you can still take advantage of that. Roma Odunze, I took the under at 99.5. So again, these are the lines I'm citing. They're all Prize Picks.
That one is 89.5 on DK.
Oh, interesting. Like right now, live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and these ones I got a couple of days ago on Prize Picks, so I'm not sure where they are right now. Odunze 99.5 under on that. Then I took the Odunze under a half of a receiving touchdown. Then I took Jalen Polk less than 55.5 receiving yards in the last game against Texas, where you'll recall Washington's passing offense was going ballistic. Polk had the least targets of Odunze, McMillan, and Jack Westover. You toss all those guys in. This game, the passing environment's going to be way down for Washington. I think that number is too high. And the last one on the Washington side, I didn't see any running props from them, so that's why these
there weren't any today either.
Yeah, which makes sense because Dylan Johnson, even though Washington's saying he's going to play, it's sort of hard to trust that because, again, he had to get carried off the field in the last game. It's just a 1 week turnaround. And then if he does play, you don't know what percentage he's going to be. So it's sort of hard to drop a number on him. But the last one I did, Jack Westover, over 2.5 receptions for him. The last game, Westover was targeted 8 times against Texas. He only needs to get to 3 receptions to go over on this one. Washington's going to have to put the ball in the air. They just are in this game. And Michigan has the elite outside corners. They have the one elite slot. I could see Westover getting free, multiple different times here. He's going to draw the lesser of the coverage guys on the Michigan side. They are way less afraid of him than the 3 NFL receivers on the Wisconsin side. And we already saw the manifestations of this in the last primetime game that Washington just played, of an opponent that was way more afraid of the 3 wide receivers. Well, when that happens and the coverage tendencies are getting pushed over to those guys, what happens with Westover? Penix is going to throw to the open guy. So in the last game, Westover targeted 8 times, ended up getting 6 receptions. The reception number is still low for him because they're basing that on the aggregate number. You go back 5 games, you go back 8 games, whatever. So it's low, but I think it makes sense to go over this number at 2.5.
Mike, just looking at the offensive line here, they Michigan turned 11 pressures into 8 sacks, against Alabama. Washington had 18 pressures on Penix, only 1 QB hit, no sacks allowed. So, Troy Fontenot is a top offensive tackle prospect in the upcoming draft. Your thoughts on when Washington has the ball versus Michigan's defense? Can they win enough to stay competitive in this game?
Yeah, that speaks to his quick release. Obviously, 1 quarterback hit on 18 pressures. There's just no time to get to him, at least for Texas. But we've seen in the past. They've played close games against everybody. Since that midseason game against Oregon, it's been, even before that was at Arizona.
Winning the close ones,
After
yeah.
that, Arizona State, Stanford. They know how to win close games, and that's because the game plan is very smart. And as Thor said, don't take any sacks, get the ball out. And he's very good at doing that under duress. There were a couple times where, another half second, Texas was going to be all over him, but anticipation, the timing with his receivers, they're all healthy now. Thor's very confident, obviously, in the Michigan secondary. He should be. I'll just play devil's advocate a little bit here because they haven't played one good quarterback. Not one. There's not one. I dare you to find one. They played East Carolina this year. They played UNLV this year. They played Bowling Green. They played Rutgers, Nebraska, Minnesota. Indiana, Michigan State, Purdue, Penn State.
Not even just an average quarterback.
No,
like
mean,
a decent quarterback. No good ones.
Aller was supposed to be great. He stinks. Kyle McCord was supposed to be the next, jigsaw puzzle, fit him right in that Ohio State offense. But now he's at Syracuse. After Maryland.
It's a great point.
Iowa. So these numbers are so skewed. Now, I will agree with one point, and it wasn't even made, but Penix has to be great for Washington to be successful on offense here. And he was great against Texas. And he's been great at times, and he's struggled at other times. And there was some talk, maybe it's a rib injury. His throwing motion was a little bit wonky at times. When he did struggle, didn't put up big numbers. That Arizona State game, they couldn't get the running game going at all. They were out. One of their wide receivers was missing. There's all these elements. And again, they might not be able to get the run game going here with the injury situation. So that's going to be a problem. But, the discrepancy. So my question in my head is Penix that good compared to how horrible all these quarterbacks are? And Milroe is in there as well.
It might have been the best that they played.
He is. I mean, when you look at it, what are you going to go, UNLV or Milroe? I mean, because all these others stink. And Milroe, the one thing that he couldn't do and can't do as a quarterback yet, maybe in an offseason he'll be able to do that. He's a home run guy. He's Al Davis is somewhere in his, $1 million throne up in heaven or sitting on his hot seat in hell, wherever he is. This is his quarterback because that guy drops back and he heaves it downfield.
And he's throwing a Darius Hayward Bay.
Or he runs. Number 8 pick in that NFL draft. Guess what Washington does really, really well with Penix? Intermediate passing game, timing routes, accuracy. So this is really difficult to try to figure out. Is Washington going to come out here and get just blitzed by this amazing defense and just get croaked and shut down? Or is this amazing defense going to get absolutely lit up by the first quarterback with a pulse that they've seen? So for me, the one I agree on is, Westover for sure. I think that's a good one. Now, Thor's got the receptions. I'm going with the receiving yards over 24.5. He got 59 against Texas. He's going to get the targets to get over 24.5. He's going to get the targets to get over the receiving number as well. That one's kind of a no-brainer.
Probably going to leave the middle of the field open on some blitzes too. So
yeah, so I think that one's now. You get into the tough part. Is Penix going to throw 291.5 on DraftKings? Thor had it over 300 early, and now it's down a little bit more. Is he going to get over that? I don't know. Is Odunze going to get over 89.5? I don't know. McMillan 61.5, Polk 51.5. I don't know. So if I'm leaning here, I'm going to say, Thor got that 2.5 touchdown number. I would go under that if you get that on Prize Picks. But 1.5 is the number on DraftKings and most of the other books. I would lean over simply because I don't care about those numbers for Michigan. Those are all against garbage quarterbacks. Even if Washington falls down 14 points, 10 points, they're going to air it out. And eventually they're going to break through because they have too many talented receivers. He's such a great quarterback. And I think he's going to throw for 2 touchdowns. So I go over on that. I would lean towards the under on his passing yards at 291.5. But Kyle McCord put up 270 and he stinks. That's a tough one. Interceptions over 0.5, I would go over. He's going to throw 1. This Michigan secondary is very, very good. I would lean Odunze over 89.5 because I think he's the guy. Will Johnson's going to be on him. I get it. Will Johnson's a very, very good corner, but they're going to target Odunze probably 10 times. They only targeted him 7 times against Texas. They balanced it. They spread the field. He's going to be the guy that Penix is going to look for.
Impactful 7 targets. I know that.
125 yards on that. And so, even if he doesn't get 10 targets, he could still go over that 89.5. But I think he's going to get 10 targets in this game. McMillan, I would lean under. Polk, I would lean under too. So, to be honest with you, I don't know what's going to happen here, offense versus defense, because you got a great defense that's played nobody, and you got a great offense that's played no defense that looks even close to what we're seeing here. We thought Texas might be, but there are issues in this.
Couldn't move him off his spot.
Issues in the secondary, yeah, it's been iffy all season long. It's not great. We don't have
I don't
issues
even blame
in
the secondary. When Penix was putting the
Right,
ball
I
in the
know.
perfect place, it was
Oh,
no
no.
pressure. No
There was
pressure.
great coverage. There was certainly great coverage.
Enough
But
pressure.
all season long, if you had to pick, one thing that Texas didn't do great was, keep the
Absolutely.
passing yards down.
It's the big plays. Yeah.
And Michigan is known for keeping the passing yards down, but again, against a bunch of garbage quarterbacks. So for me, I don't know where this offense versus defense matchup is going to go. So my best bets are, Westover and then the ones I mentioned. But my hunch is Michigan's going to dominate this football game. That's my hunch.
Right. Well,
but we don't have enough data to say that that's going to happen. And we've said this all season long about Washington, that they're going to lose, and they just never do.
Well, let's before we move to when Michigan has the ball, let me tell you guys, if you want a chance to win a premium 1-year subscription to BettingPros, your place to start betting smarter, not harder, you need to subscribe to the BettingPros YouTube channel right now. Comment below on this video, and that's it. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and claim your prize. When Michigan,
now this is easier, Bogman. This is easier.
This should be much easier, right? And I'm not going to start with McCarthy. We're going to start with Blake Corum because Texas ran for 180 yards on Washington. The Huskies were 72nd in run D grade on PFF this season. This is how Michigan wins on offense. They run the ball, they control the clock. McCarthy versus the secondary is going to be interesting. Ewers was only 24 of 43, but he did have 318 yards. He also ran for 54 yards on 8 carries. McCarthy, much better with his legs than Ewers. So they could be in trouble trying to contain McCarthy as well. Washington was good in coverage. They ranked 15th overall in PFF coverage grade. Michigan might have a couple weak links on the line. Henderson, the left tackle, and Barnhart, the right guard, have been the weak links to that Michigan offensive line. But Braylon Trice is really the only threat to put pressure on the quarterback. Now, he got to Quinn Ewers. He was great in the Sugar Bowl, but it's I think it's a bigger challenge here against Michigan. And also, Michigan shouldn't be passing the ball as much as Texas did, playing from behind. In terms of the wide receivers versus the defensive backs, Roman Wilson had 12 touchdowns this year. No one else had more than 4. Cornelius Johnson had 1 fewer catch, so he's used as much as Roman Wilson is, but only 1 touchdown this year. And then the other guys, Colston Loveland, A.J. Barnard, Donovan Edwards, they could have an impact here, so I'm interested to hear your takes on those guys in terms of the prop bets, Thor. So, Thor, we'll start with you. When Michigan has the ball, what are we looking for?
Yeah, first off, I forgot to say one of my stats in the last one. So I got to clean that one up first. Michigan's pass defense, they run this NFL-like scheme where they have the heavy zone coverage. So they run man only 27.4% of the snaps. That's 110th in the nation. Michael Penix, why this is relevant, he's far more explosive against man than zone. He averages 11.9 adjusted air yards per attempt against man compared to 9.1 against zone. So I just wanted to clean that up really quick. I had to drop that one before we move over to this one. This one in Michigan's offense against Washington's defense, it's specifically the run offense against Michigan against Washington's run defense. It is one of the great mismatches you will ever see in a national title game. In fact, it might be the biggest. It probably is the biggest. Michigan has an utterly elite running offense. Washington had one of the worst run defenses in the entire FBS this year. So the Huskies, their run defense, 121st in success rate this year. There's only 133 teams in the friggin' FBS. They were 126 in stuff rate. Their front gets pushed around all the time. Washington has a 4-2-5 defense. So, I mean, they have 5 defensive backs on the field at all times as well. And again, just getting push back. They have this bend, don't break defense. They're trying to take away explosive plays. They'll let you get the short stuff in the ground game for sure all day long. Michigan's greatest strength, it's their power run game. So they're just built to take advantage of teams like this. Michigan's run game, 36 success rate, but 5th in stuff rate. So they'll steal your lunch money all day long, even facing decent run defenses. Oh boy, is this a mismatch. Again, and especially against a team like this with the 4-2-5 defense. In addition, Washington, their defense, 132nd in the nation, second to last in tackle success rate. You want to talk about a bad matchup against Blake Corum? Michigan's offensive prerogative anyway is to keep it on the ground and just grind you into dust. They have this, power run concept where you guys know Michigan. They shift around the formation. It's the pre-snap motion, and then they have they'll do the numbers advantages on one side. I sort of think of them of like, the air raid teams where they have like the exotic formations and different stuff like that. And they do all the sort of cool stuff like that. And we usually give credit to teams like that with the cool formations when they're throwing the ball. That's Michigan on the ground. They like it for run game off Odunze. Michigan's your team. They bring all these different guys onto the field, and then they're doing all these cool things with the pre-snap motion and the numbers on one side of the field or the other. And the reason they're doing it is so they can get angles on you in the front. It's like a pool shark. They're just trying to get angles on the guys on the front. So they literally, the guys in the front, they have no chance. And you saw it with Alabama where all the Michigan guys, they just had angles on them. And all of a sudden, Corum's just running into freedom. It was just the way that it was going down. This Washington team, even when it's straight up, against a team that doesn't run the ball nearly as well, they're hapless to stop it. Blake Corum is going to run wild in this game. It just is what it is. It's just going to happen. And even in instances where Michigan gets into third and long, it's not going to happen often. But when they do, in the very rare instances when they do, J.J. McCarthy is one of the great killers in the NCAA that we currently have on third and long. Pulled this stat from our boy RG3. J.J. McCarthy, 33 of 44, 75% for 526 yards with 26 first downs or touchdowns when it's 3rd and 7 or longer. How is Washington going to get Michigan off the field in this game? Ever. I don't know how it happens. The way that Michigan plays offensive football, it drives right into the way where Washington's just like, come on down the field. Washington constructed this 4-2-5 defense to confront the spread offenses that throw the ball a bunch in the Pac-12, right? Like your USCs, for instance, right? Like that was the team where when they're putting this thing together, it's like, we're going to try to beat that team. Michigan's the opposite of that. This is a horrific matchup for Washington, and it is a lick your chops matchup for Blake Corum in the prop market. Like I said, it just is what it is. My props on this one, J.J. McCarthy over 15.5 rushing yards, I feel like is a good one. They're going to get him on some of the same concepts where they had with Alabama, getting him out of the pocket, different stuff like that. Not going to be a ton, but Washington doesn't have a great pass rush either. They're not going to put McCarthy in bad spots, so I don't think you're going to have to put up with mini sack yardage getting taken away. And on a few scrambles, he's going to get over that. I feel like the one I love way more, Blake Corum over 106.5. The books almost couldn't set that one high enough. I'm also on the ladders. Bring that ladder up to heaven, baby. Thor's on the one up to 115, the one up to 130, 150. Juicing those odds all the way up. Blake Corum could get to 200 plus in this game. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I don't see how Washington stops them. Washington defense, the whole thing is just, we're not going to give you explosive plays. Michigan doesn't go for explosive. They don't care. It's just efficiency. It's the one thing Washington will freely give you. This is a terrible matchup again. Roman Wilson, I went over his 48.5 yards. Michigan, that's their big play, dude. It's the guy they go to in money spots. I think during the regular season, he had 48 receptions and 12 of them were touchdowns. If you just look at his receiving line in the regular season, it wasn't super impressive till you looked at like the first downs and touchdowns. It's like every time they need something, they go to Roman Wilson. So I was all over his props in the Alabama game. As anyone who read my column on BettingPros would know, he hit everything. He was over on the receptions. He was over on the receiving yards. He hit his anytime touchdown. It's just the dude they go to when they need stuff. This is a money game. They will be going to him again. I just took a nibble on Cornelius. I just tossed Cornelius Johnson into one of them at 41.5. just because Washington's defense stinks. But that's would be my lowest on the totem pole, probably of all the ones I tossed out. The other three I like a lot more. Blake Corum is my favorite one of all the ones I've tossed out.
Mike, you made great counterpoints on the offensive side when Washington has the ball. Do you have counterpoints to make what Thor has when Michigan has the ball for Washington's defense? I would love to hear them. Let's hear them.
I do. So now, again, I'm agreeing with Thor here, and I'll get to my props in a second. And, this isn't a good matchup. So I like to play devil's advocate, and I like to give people hope. The similar scheme and defensive team played Michigan last year in the playoff, and they were called the TCU Horned Frogs. And they were kind of smallish up front, and they played 5 D-backs. And, we saw what Georgia did to them in the championship game. Just played more physical, destroyed them, got to that second level. There was just absolutely no chance. And that's what Michigan should have done. Guess what they didn't do last year? They didn't do that. Now, Jim Harbaugh's not an idiot. I can't see a repeat of that. But just a couple numbers against TCU last year. TCU rushed the ball 41 times against Michigan in that 51-45 upset victory. Michigan ran the ball 40 times. They allowed more rushing attempts to a team that isn't as good as a power football team.
Yeah, but that was defensive breakdowns, right, Mike? I mean, Blake Corum didn't play in that game. Donovan Edwards had 119 rush yards. McCarthy had 342 passing. Yeah,
because Blake Corum is the key here,
right?
And I'm getting to that. And they fell behind. This is the issue. JJ McCarthy threw 34 times in that football game. Max Duggan threw 29 times. That should never in a million years happen against this type of scheme. But they came out. J.J. McCarthy made a couple early mistakes. Panic ensued. Michigan started to feel, they were falling behind. They were down 14-0 the first quarter. They started throwing the ball more. Now, the one thing that's different, well, there's 2 things that are different. Jim Harbaugh is not an idiot. He's going to learn from that experience. And he also saw what Georgia did to TCU. He's probably kicked himself the entire offseason and said, why didn't we do that? Secondly, Blake Corum's playing in this football game. He did not play in that football game. So Donovan Edwards was their lead guy. He's a different back than Corum. Corum's a guy who's going to get you 3 yards and then fall forward for 3 more, or he's going to bounce off tackles. He's low to the ground. He's hard to get a clean hit on. He's a much more evasive runner in that respect, where Edwards is more of a seam gone type of guy. But if you could bottle him up, he's not going to get all those extra yards or wear you down. So Corum's the big difference here. I'm just saying from this matchup perspective, it's an awful one for Washington's defense. But it was an awful one last year for TCU's defense, and Michigan allowed them to dictate the pace of that football game and make Michigan play an uncomfortable style. But the difference is Blake Corum wasn't there. So that being said, all of that hope that I just gave Washington fans, I'm going to dash, because when I mentioned the offense versus defense, Washington versus Michigan, I don't know what's going to happen. Michigan's defense is great against a bunch of crap quarterbacks. Penix is much better, blah, blah, blah. I know what's going to happen here, unless Jim Harbaugh just is so dumb that he can't learn from his mistakes, and he's not. He's been tremendous this season. Coach Moore's been tremendous this season. They know what they are, and they're not going to let themselves get into shooting match with Washington. So Corum is 105.5 rushing yards. Going to go way over that. That's probably the easiest bet you could have in this entire game. They're going to be able to impose their will. They're going to be able to run the football. Washington's going to have trouble, pass rush. They're not going to really get to J.J. McCarthy. His rushing yards, 23.5. I like him to be over that. Quinn Ewers, as you mentioned, ran 54. For much more than that. He's not really a mobile quarterback. He's okay, but J.J. McCarthy, much more athletic, much better runner. McCarthy passing yards, 196.5 is tough. I'm going to lean under, because I don't think they're going to have to throw the football very much, and I hope they don't. If he goes over that, we're going to have a close football game, and everybody's going to be happy. But he's got to be under that number. It can't be like last year against TCU. And then, the receiving props, I do like Roman Wilson over 48.5, simply because he's a chunk guy, and they're going to have a couple, downfield throws to keep everybody honest, blah, blah, blah. And to be honest, Washington's going to sell out big time to stop the run. I mean, they play this scheme with 5 defensive backs. Well, 2 of those guys are going to be playing 7-yard linebacker positions, essentially. They're going to have to be close to the line of scrimmage, fill that box, and they're going to have to sell out, which is going to allow a speedy receiver like that to catch a couple long passes. So he's going to go over easy. I'm not touching Cornelius Johnson. So I'm agreeing with most of this. Colston Loveland, I think, is going to go over 34.5 as well. Donovan Edwards' receiving yards was pretty good all season. If you wanted to make money, he's 15.5. I would go over that as well. But that's going to be the bulk of their passing game, is a couple downfield to Wilson, a couple in the middle to Loveland to get over that 34.5, a couple swing passes to Edwards. Run. So the 105.5 is easy money. And like Thor said, and this is something that I've been starting to do more this season, is taking what I call a cascade bet. And I will start at the negative. Blake Corum's rushing yards. Maybe it'll start at 100 or something like that, but you get a negative 260, and then you go 110, you go 120, and then you get up to the pluses when you're over 150, 160. Do that, cascade him, and you're going to make a ton of money. Because if you do that, like a $20 bet each time with the pluses that you're going to get near the end there, when he goes over 160, 170 yards, you'll make a ton of money. So that's what I see here. That's why I think Michigan is going to win. Spoiler alert, I'm taking them with the spread to cover, because their physical offense is going to beat this overmatched defense of Washington. And I think they're going to probably win this game by a couple touchdowns.
All right, so you're on Michigan on the over/under, Mike. 55.5, 56, somewhere in that range.
That's a tough one because again, Michigan, they don't allow a lot of points. I'm going to lean under.
Okay.
I think Washington's going to score 17 to 20 points here, and I don't think Michigan's going to put up a ton. I think they're going to win this game maybe 31 to 20 and come under that.
Thor, is the official pick here? Is it Michigan in the under as well?
Yeah, Michigan, as you know, Bogman was my preseason national title pick. It could not be any other way. We've been riding them all season. It will be Michigan for me. So going Michigan, and in line with that, if you like Michigan, I think you got to like the under. My system, it's right around there. But yeah, we're gonna go with the under on this one. I feel like the way this game plays out, what is Michigan's prerogative in this thing? It's to control the ball with the ground game, which we know by the matchup is they're going to be able to do. They're going to grind the clock. The one other thing that I would say about this, it's not just Michigan that plays at the methodical tempo, and maybe methodical doesn't even go far enough. Michigan is 130th, again, out of 133 in the nation in adjusted tempo. You know who else likes to play at a snail's pace? Washington is 111 in adjusted tempo. So both these teams play extremely slow. And with Michigan, with all the plays that they're going to have on their snaps, because Washington can't stop the run, they're going to have these really, really long drives. So Washington, for this game to go over, Washington needs to take advantage of the limited possessions that they're going to have. Because of the way that they're going to have the offensive success, Washington is going to have way less possessions than they have in a general game. They're going to have ridiculous efficiency on their drives. I feel like for this game to get 60 points or whatever, we're going to need to go over. I just don't see it happening. So that's why I'm going to go under on this game. I'm going to lay the points with Michigan, and that's what we're doing in this one.
All right. Well, look, that is going to do it for us, gentlemen. It has been a pleasure this college football season, talking to you guys every week to preview every week. And we will be back very soon as well. So remember, you can follow us all on Twitter at Bogman Sports for myself, at ThorKU for Thor, and at M Farrell Sports, 2 R's, 2 L's for Mike. And we will see you guys next time. Take it easy, everybody.